Will the secretary please call roll?
Commissioner Penninger,
Present.
Commissioner Escamilla, Commissioner Leo,
Here.
Commissioner Pham, Commissioner Wu,
Here.
Vice Chair Ramos,
Present.
Chair Oliva.
Here.
Chair Crum has been reached at 5:33.
Thank you. Before we begin, I would like to remind my fellow commissioners to turn your microphones on when speaking and off when not speaking. And when speaking, please place the microphone about 4 inches away from you. Thank you. Members of the public may attend Planning Commission meetings in person or virtually via Zoom. I now invite the Commission Secretary to describe the way the public can access and participate in this meeting.
This meeting is being live streamed via our portal at www.sana-ana.primegov.com/public/portal and to YouTube at www.youtube.com/City of Santa Ana videos. If you would like to provide public comment, you may do so in the following ways. Join the meeting via Zoom. Enter meeting ID number 892-8373-1460. When the item that you would like to comment on is being discussed, select the hand icon to let us know you would like to speak. You will be called upon by the name you entered. You can also join the meeting by calling 669-900-6833. Enter meeting ID number 892-8373-1460. When the item that you would like to comment on is being discussed, press 9 to let us know you would like to speak. You will be called upon by the last 3 digits of your phone number. After you're called upon, you may press 6 to unmute yourself. For those who are attending this meeting in person and would like to provide public comment, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. All speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. We will alert you when your time is up.
Moving on to public comments on non-agenda or non-public hearing items. Secretary, does anyone wish to speak?
If you're attending this meeting in person and would like to comment on non-agenda or non-public hearing items, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. If you're participating via Zoom and would like to comment on non-agenda or non-public hearing items, please select the hand icon and unmute yourself. If you're calling in and would like to comment on non-agenda or non-public hearing items, please dial 9 and then 6 to unmute yourself. Chair, we do have speakers.
I would also like to make note that Commissioner Escamilla has joined us at 5:35. We have one non-agenda item by Mike Tardif. If you can join us at the microphone.
Good evening. My name is Mike Tardif. I'm a longtime Santa Ana resident, property and business owner. I would like to speak to you concerning the planned elimination of industrial zoning, businesses and jobs in the SD 84 Transit Zoning Code area, centering around the train station. This rezoning will have dramatic effects on residential neighborhoods, 200 businesses, property values, and hundreds of Santa Ana jobs. All told, you will be affecting over $1 billion of values and livelihoods. After 9 months of being subject to the moratorium for this area, the city has published draft regulations for industrial uses and business elimination, which they propose to make permanent. This is being done in the name of environmental justice without verifiable evidence or an updated environmental impact report available for public comment and staff response. If the city is concerned about justice, why aren't they mandating single-family homes, reflecting the character of Logan and Lacey neighborhoods, rather than gentrifying high density? This rezoning is actually a land grab in favor of high-density developers. After studying these regulations for several hours, they are 38 pages. I still do not fully understand them. The regulations will have significant impacts on businesses, jobs, property values, and residential neighborhoods. The city has not reached out to the business community or neighborhoods for input and collaboration and to respond to questions since the release of the draft regulations, and with no plans to do so. I and others have questions which should be responded to publicly. The city is rushing these regulations through with little to no community input and zero meaningful engagement. The plan is scheduled to come before this body for a study session and public hearing next month, and then to council in April. Council approval is required by mid-April, or they will be required to extend the harmful moratorium. When this rezoning plan comes before you next month, I ask you, as representatives of the residents and businesses of Santa Ana, to ask in-depth questions of staff and to require of them detailed, direct responses. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another speaker via Zoom.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment in regards to the notice public hearing for the Wendy's that's going to be proposed on Bristol. My concern, and I'm a property owner here within the 1,000 feet.
Excuse me, Manuel, this is for non-public hearing items. Your comment can be taken once the item is called. We don't have any additional speakers.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve item A, minutes from December 9, 2024, and item B, excused absences?
I move both items.
I second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wu and a second by Commissioner Benninger. Secretary, please call for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Benninger,
Aye.
Commissioner Escamilla,
Aye.
Commissioner Leo,
Aye.
Commissioner Pham, Commissioner Wu, Vice Chair Ramos,
Aye.
Chair Oliva.
Aye.
Motion approved by majority vote with Commissioner Pham absent.
That concludes the consent calendar items. Moving on to the public hearing. I will now review the process for the public hearing so that everyone knows what to expect. Staff will provide a presentation and answer questions from the commission. The public hearing will be opened. The applicant will be given the opportunity to speak, limited to 15 minutes. Members of the public will be given the opportunity to comment, limited to 3 minutes. The applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to comments made by the public, limited to 5 minutes. The public hearing will be closed. Discussion will return to the commission with formal action taken to approve, deny, or continue review of the application. Please consider the following suggestions when organizing your comment. Please state your name and address, strictly voluntary. State whether you support, oppose, or are neutral to the proposal. Your statement should include all pertinent facts within your knowledge. Please note, decision on this matter is final unless appealed within 10 days by any interested individual or party. Recommendations on this item will be forwarded to the City Council at a later date for final determination. This is the time and place for conditional use permit number 2025-01 for the property located at 2600 South Bristol Street, located within the planned shopping center C4 zoning district. Before we begin, do any commissioners have anything they wish to disclose with regard to this item? I will have to recuse myself from this item as I live within the 1,000 square feet of the location, and I will hand it over to our Vice Chair Ramos to continue with this portion of the presentation.
Thank you. This is the time and place for conditional use permit number 2025-01 for the property located at 2600 South Bristol Street, located within the planned shopping center C4 zoning district. Christian Santana will provide a brief presentation.
Thank you, Chair.
Vice Chair. Good evening, fellow commissioners. Tonight, I will be presenting the request for after-hours operation of only the drive-through at a new Wendy's eating establishments, CUP number 2025-01, located at 2600 South Bristol Streets. Staff's recommendation for this request is to adopt a resolution approving CUP 2025-01 as conditioned. The general plan designates this area, 2600 South Bristol Street, as urban neighborhood medium below. And the location is within the planned shopping center, the C4 zoning district. Surrounding land uses include toward the north, east, and south are commercial retail, and towards the west lays single-family residential uses. The lot is 2.08 acres, and the freestanding pad building, which the Wendy's will be located in, is 2,288 square feet. The subject site was developed back in 1979 with two multi-tenant commercial buildings ranging from 3,700 square feet to 9,400 square feet. In 1989, 2600 South Bristol Street received entitlement approval for CUP 1989-12 to facilitate the construction of a 2,288 square foot standalone pad building with the drive-through. This became the Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant. The Planning Commission approved CUP 1989-12 with the condition that the hours of operation of the drive-through be limited from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and that KFC occupied the building from 1989 until 2024. In December of 2024, Wendy's applied for a certificate of occupancy and submitted construction plans to the Planning and Building Agency to revise and remodel the commercial facade and other various tenant improvements, which consist from interior and exterior upgrades. These upgrades and improvements of the eating establishment are pretty significant. They're changing out the interior finishings, the exterior facade area, but the establishment will remain consistent with serving 42 patrons. Hours of operation for the drive-through are proposed from Sunday through Thursday from 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. and from Friday and Saturday from 6 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. The indoor dining area will be open from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. If approved, CUP 2025-01 would supersede the hours of operations listed in the original CUP 1989-12, which limited the drive-through hours from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. At this time, the no alcohol services or live entertainment are being proposed, and Wendy's is also additionally a well-established national store franchise, offering traditional assortment of American-style food offerings. Here is a photo of the facade of the new Wendy's establishment facing Bristol. And then here is a site plan of the freestanding building. Here's a close-up of the site plan, which indicates where the main entrance would be located. It's in the same exact location as the KFC. And then there's also a indication of the order point where the drive-through voice box would be located. Here's a floor plan. And here are the elevations with the area for the main entrance. The purpose of regulating eating establishments that operate between 12 a.m. and 5 a.m. is to set forth operating practices and procedures that minimize impacts to surrounding areas. Staff has reviewed the applicant's request for expanding operational hours and determined that the CUP will not be detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the community. The existing site conditions minimize potential nuisance impacts to surrounding uses and are designed in a manner that would not result in negative impacts during extended hours. The site is located approximately 2,500 linear feet from the nearest single-family residence, which is towards the west of the site, and is additionally buffered by an existing commercial building. The drive-through speaker boxes are located towards Bristol Street and oriented towards Bristol Street, which would be located away the opposite way from residential uses. Additionally, the police department has no concerns regarding the operational standards of Wendy's, and the conditions approval indicated in the resolution that are applicable to after-hours operations would mitigate any potential impacts to the surrounding community, and therefore the police department does not oppose granting the CUP. Several conditions of approval are recommended in an effort to ensure that there are no detrimental impacts to the local community during after-hours operation. These include installation of security cameras within the interior and the exterior of the building, installing no loitering or trespassing signs and place cards throughout the parking areas, installation and maintenance of appropriate site illumination levels in compliance with Santa Ana Municipal Code Section 8-211. Additionally, the installation of contact information for on-site management in the case of noise and other operational related complaints would be required. The conditions of approval, property maintenance agreements, and standards within Santa Ana's municipal code will address any potential negative impacts. Approval of this application would be consistent with several goals and policies of the general plan, specifically goals 2, 3, 4, and 4 of the land use elements. Additionally, pursuant to California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, the project is also categorically exempt per Section 15301, Class 1 existing facilities of CEQA guidelines. Environmental review number 2024-106 will be filed for this project, and there's also no physical impact associated with this project. With that said, staff is recommending the Planning Commission approve a resolution approving conditional use permit number 2025-01 as conditioned. And the applicant is also here to answer any further questions that the commission might have. Thanks.
Thank you. Does the commission have any comments or questions for staff? Go ahead.
Yes, the operation hours to 1:30 a.m., how does that fit in with the other restaurants in that area?
They're fairly consistent. We have the same operational hours for a recently approved Raising Cane's off of Bristol, North Bristol, as well as the In-N-Outs off of Bristol. They have the same operational hours.
Okay. But like the Burger King that's in existence that's there, the Habit Burgers that are there, how's that time work with them?
With those facilities, I'm unsure when those were originally entitled, but recently during the last couple of years, I believe Raising Cane's went to the Plan Commission within the last year, back in the summer, and then what was it, 2021, when In-N-Out went to the Plan Commission. They'd be fairly consistent. I'm just unsure of the two specific ones that you pointed out to.
Gotcha. The landscaping is very good around there, and it looks like they're going to make no changes to the landscaping.
They'll actually be upgrading some of the landscaping in terms of refurbishing what was died over time, lack of maintenance over time with the prior tenants. So they'll be installing new upgraded landscaping, new hedges, shrubs, ground cover, things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, just wondering where the landscape plan is in the attachments. Is it under the just report? Trying to find a copy of the hedges, actually. I just have a very specific question on the angle. The site plan includes kind of just like the overall layout. So really, I just want staff to make sure that if you're looking at Exhibit 3, I believe the second page, we just have a little diagram that kind of shows car number 4. And that's really the only point at which any kind of vehicle with high beams might, not blind, but kind of shoot the light towards the what appears to be an apartment complex kind of across the street. So with probably more traditional halogen lights, like not really an issue, but now with like high powered LED lights, that's really the only location where there seems to be some potential for light intrusion on a residence. So as long as the hedge is there at that particular angle to kind of block any of the light, that's really all I'm looking for in the landscape plan, if possible, to include. I know that maybe it might be a little hard to kind of get that full like 4-foot hedge with certain small shrubs, but just to try to include something like that to mitigate any light pollution for that particular neighbor.
Yes, of course. The major mod, as well as the landscaping improvements, are included as a building permit submittal, so they're currently in the review process. We can make sure that they're that requirement is emphasized.
Thank you.
I appreciate you mentioning the in and out and the Raising Cane's, but this corner's a little different. What are the hours at the Denny's across the street?
Denny's, I believe, is 24 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Wu?
I'd like staff to elaborate on the location of the exterior security cameras. And are they kind of in a fixed view, or do they rotate? Do they zoom in and out? And are the privacy of any residential area protected from these cameras?
That may be more of a question for the applicants.
I can't hear you. Can you just please
Yeah,
speak
of
up?
course. That might be more of a question for the applicants. Traditionally speaking, these types of fast food eating establishments already have security cameras installed, both on the inside and the outside for security purposes. I think the applicant can elaborate a little bit more on that, where they would specifically be installed at the location.
Does the city place any privacy restrictions on exterior cameras? First,
I don't believe so, no.
thank you.
Thank you for the first round of questions and comments. I'm now gonna go ahead and open the public hearing. So the public hearing is now open. Would the applicant like to speak on the matter?
Good evening. My name is Matt Clark, and I'm here representing Cotty Foods, who is the franchisee for Wendy's. It's been nice working with Christian on this. We have read through the staff report, the conditions of approval, and we have no issues with them. I'm also here with Ryan Zaki from Cotty Foods. He's with the operations of the restaurant, so he might be able to better answer your questions regarding the cameras. And also regarding landscaping, everything that is there is trying to be protected in place. Anything that does get damaged will be replaced with like types of plants. We did take a look at Google Maps while you were speaking on it, and there are hedges along that area that will be for sure maintained. And at this time, I'll turn it back over to you guys with any questions you may also have.
Yeah, if we can have either of you answer some of the questions that have been asked thus far. Thank you for that. So I think it's the security cameras question.
Yeah, so I'm Ryan Zaki with Cotty Foods. I'm the Chief Development Officer for Cotty Foods. We do have fixed cameras. They're fixed. They're not rotating. They're usually at the entry points, and we're very aware of privacy, and we shine those in a direction that is for our customer and reduce liability.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from commissioners for the applicant? Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Recording secretary, have we received any written communication, or is there a member of the public that would like to comment on this item?
We have received public comment, which has been distributed to the commission and posted online. And we also have a speaker via Zoom. Manuel Fez, can you please unmute yourself?
Yes, how you doing? My name is Manuel Fez. I live in the area, the neighborhood right behind this new proposed Wendy's that's replacing the KFC. And I do have concerns of the new hours of operation that's extending to 1:30. We already have issues in this area with parking that's an issue. The extending to 1:30 is going to create a lot more traffic and just nuisance in that area. I'm not opposed to the Wendy's coming in, But I am concerned with the hours now extending to 1:30, having a lot more nuisance and traffic in this area at very late hours of the evening. So I just wanted to address that and leave that as a concern that I have.
Thank you. Recording Secretary, were there any members of the public that wish to comment on this item?
No.
Thank you. Do we have any last comments or questions from commissioners before I close the public hearing?
Yes, I like folks that are proposing this to ask the question of 1:30. Why 1:30? Why not midnight or 1?
Typically, hours of operations run till 2 a.m. for late night. Due to late shift, provide a food service for commuters late in the evening and also early in the morning with our breakfast schedule. And it is, delivery service is predominantly majority of our late night sales. So they're just coming in, picking up.
Thank you.
Thank you. I take it, Commissioner Escamilla, did you have something?
I'm sorry, I think this one will be for staff, I think, so we can close the public hearing and then ask staff.
Great. So with that, the public hearing is now closed. Commissioner Escamilla, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, no, just take the concerns from the public seriously. Staff, what general procedure do we have in place whenever we issue a new kind of late night CUP for either that 6-month review or some other kind of interval of, hey, everything is fine, or we have no reported issues, or maybe there have been issues at this particular site. What do we already kind of have in place that's already included within the conditions of approval, or just as general practice?
Commissioners, so as part of the code process and CUP process, the city always has the opportunity and the options to review a conditional use permit at any point in time that we see there are issues, and any point in time that we see what we consider to be credible complaints. So to respond to you directly, we can review a CUP at any point in time.
Perfect, thank you.
So I have a follow-up question on that. As of now, there is no review mechanism written into the resolution, correct? Or is there?
I didn't see one. I didn't see one here, but if that's something that the planning commissions feel is appropriate, a standard condition has been used in the past. It's been for a period of 6 months and have it a review via a evaluation by staff and a closeout memorandum to the city planning commission on the status.
Yeah, I know we've done that for similar items that have come before us in the last year, so I think it'd be great to add it here and on future CUPs.
Absolutely. When it's a concern, we do make a recommendation. The staff obviously didn't feel that was necessary here. However, if the commission feels that's a condition that would help based on your review, that certainly can be added, and we should give the applicant an opportunity to assign the conditions and to let us know if they accept or oppose the condition.
Thank you.
If that's going to be the will of the planning commission.
Yes, and then a quick question for legal counsel. Do we need to reopen the public hearing to have the applicant speak again?
You're essentially reopening public testimony if you'd like to ask a question of the applicant. So yes, you can do that.
Okay, I'll take any additional questions from the commission before doing that.
Yeah, I guess from my position, it's not so much us asking them or asking us to review it after 6 months or a year. It's actually ask the business, how are things going for them as well? It's a two-way street. If they've got issues, then you're going to hear about it. And if the community hears issues, you're going to hear about it. So if we put an automatic requirement in there that after 1 year, you guys sit down and talk, it resolves whatever may be there. If something were to arise, and they may say, hey, X, Y, and Z occurred. We took care of it, however it works. But I think that especially any new businesses, we should ask them 6 months or a year down the road, are things okay? Is there something we can do for you? Kind of good customer service, but also they can tell you what they see, right? Because they're running a business late into the evening. So I'm wondering if we think standardizing it to like once a year, and especially when it's alcohol, it should be 6 months in a year. But for me, at least once a year, just sit down with any new business, any business, say, are things okay? Just good customer service. That's my opinion before we open the public hearing.
Thank you, Commissioner Leo. I'll give it over to Commissioner Wu before doing that.
Yeah, one thing I'm struggling with is Bristol Street. It is a bus corridor for working people. And those that work certain hours far away are on the way home. And most of the restaurants in the city close by 8 or 9. We used to have a very good restaurant, the Old Ship, that stays open till 1 or 2. That's family oriented, but it also is a bar. We don't have a lot of those options today. And my concern about the working family is that although I'm not suggesting that we save it for fast food being the only diet, because that's fast food. But I'm just thinking out loud about the flexibility for different segments of our population and their needs, and that we, in looking at this, look at it from a broad perspective. I don't know the food industry. It's been a long time since I've been in it, and it's probably changed since COVID. Many good restaurants have closed, restaurants I like to see. So the marketplace has changed. I want us to take that into consideration as well. These national companies and franchises may survive only because they have the financial means to, whether through these kinds of time. And this is not a plea for them or against them. It's just something I've been looking at, and as I drive around, because I got to take my daughter to work or pick her up from the hospital, I notice who's at the bus stop, and what is our working families as I talk to them as they live on my block. So I just want to share that with the rest of the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Wu.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Commissioner Escamilla.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I guess this would be another potential option for us up here. I know sometimes what we do is we'll approve something and we're approving this only to 1:30. I actually don't mind moving the approval to the full maximum amount. That way you don't have to come back. So it'd be like till 2 a.m. Obviously, they don't have to stay open that late. Was there a difference for staff as to, really between that 2 a.m. marker and that 1:30 marker? Would that make a substantial difference as far as impact?
Thank you for that question, Commissioner. I think when we analyze the existing businesses that we've approved recently in the last 6 months to a year, we took that into account. And for consistency purposes, we wanted to stay consistent with what's happening on North Bristol as well, with the Raising Cane's, In-N-Out, McDonald's. And as was discussed as part of the staff report, some of those businesses surrounding this specific site are open 24 hours or later, but they're not necessarily subject to the same after hours requirements because they're not adjacent to residential zones or residential properties within the 150 feet or so anyways, I think we just wanted to be consistent with what's out there.
Yep, totally understand that, and we'll withdraw the 2 a.m. consideration then.
I would just like to add that the 1:30 is very consistent because I think the In-N-Out Burger is 1:30. I think the Taco Bell's 1 a.m. The Burger King, I don't know why I know these times, but I think they're midnight or 12:30. I think it's very consistent what's in there, and the Denny's is 24 hours, so I think it fits very well with the time for there. If we did ask for it, I would agree with Commissioner Leo. It's more of a courtesy from this city to just say, how's it going? And it's worthwhile checking up with these new businesses. So if we were to add it, it's just strictly for that reason.
Thank you, Commissioner. So what I'm hearing is a potential discussion for our additional staff comments at the end of the meeting to see what we may want to standardize moving forward. And then what I hear is a direct question to the applicant if they would be okay with a 6-month or 1 year check-in with staff. So with that, I'll open the public hearing so that the applicant can come forth and answer that question.
So currently, the CUP can be reviewed at any time by the city, correct? So after 6 months, what are we reviewing? That would be kind of my question. And, our competitors that we would be against in the community already have these hours of operations. Now, if we create a nuisance to the neighborhoods and stuff, totally understand. I mean, we've worked with city jurisdictions all over the country and adjusted hours of operations to be a good fit for the community. We're looking long-term here. You know, part of the improvements we're doing to the building is to, you know, update the center a little bit. I know it's been old. It's, you know, with some of the things there. I know the 150 feet from the actual business itself, we're on the cusp, but since the property is a larger development, it borderline the residents, and that's why kind of some of the results were there. So, I mean, I would kind of open up truly after 6 months, what would we like to review? I mean, if I've got really late night sales going on, would you extend my hours till 2:30? I mean, that, because, I mean, there could be an avenue for additional patrons within the community. There is a bus stop located right out front of this. And that's kind of why we looked at this location specifically, and with the upcoming developments on Bristol.
Thank you. So I think some of the questions you asked tonight can't be answered, but the question we have for you is, would you be okay with us requiring a 6-month or 1-year check-in? And what that entails would be at the discretion of staff.
I'd be willing to review it with that.
And I'll add that that is something we've added to CUPs that are very similar to this one.
What I would recommend is that the condition be crafted in a way, if there's a check-in, it's really a staff evaluation, and that report would be submitted to the Plan Commission. And it's not necessarily a public hearing process review, but it's a review by staff of the conditions. And based on that, it may not even have to involve the applicant in terms of the operations. It's based on city evaluation, based on our complaints file, and based on information that we receive from the public. So we'll certainly be checking with the applicant, but it could be as simple as that.
Yeah, and then just to, I guess, clarify, that's basically how we've done it.
That is how we've done it in the past.
Yeah.
I would hesitate to add it as a broad base conditions for all CUPs, as we do have a number of CUPs. That if that's a broad base, it should be something that be discussed in depth in terms of the resources it would take to do that. But I think for specific projects where we have good reasons to do this, we have done it in the past.
And would staff be able to pull language from a previous CUP
Yes,
approval?
absolutely.
Okay. Go ahead, Commissioner Wu.
For a point of clarification, the dining room closes at 10.
Correct.
So this is only operation for the drive-through.
Correct.
So it's consistent with servicing those that are eat and run. They order their food and take it with them, right? So there's no hanging around, but you have security cameras that will monitor the area in case.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct,
So
Commissioner.
I just want to clarify that whatever. Okay.
Yeah, this is for drive-through operations.
Right.
And I would be willing to do it as a staff review on that.
Thank you. So I take it there are no more questions or comments from the commission. And with that, the public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve this matter?
I'll go ahead and motion to approve.
Commissioner Escamilla, did you need to add any friendly amendments?
Oh my gosh, yes, with the added language for the review, and 6-month or 1 year on this one,
6-month city staff review.
6-month city staff review.
I second that.
Thank you. Secretary, can you please call for a roll call vote?
Commissioner Benninger,
Aye.
Commissioner Escamilla,
Aye.
Commissioner Leo,
Aye.
Commissioner Pham, Commissioner Wu,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ramos,
Aye.
Chair Oliva. Motion approved by majority vote with Commissioner Pham and Oliva recusing herself.
Thank you. Congratulations. Can somebody please get Chair Oliva for the next item?
While we're waiting for it, I'd just like to add that your first client is going to probably be my wife, when she saw what I was voting on today. She gave me the orders.
I live just down the street as well. Thank you. Thank you.
This is the time and place for modification of conditional use permit number 2019-19 and variance number 2019-02 for the property located at 1800 North Bush Street, located within the Professional P zoning district. Before we begin, do any commissioners have anything they wish to disclose with regard to this item? Seeing none, Heidi Jacinto will provide a brief presentation.
Thank you, Chair Oliva. The application before you this evening is for conditional use permit number 2019-19 modification number 1 and variance number 2019-2 modification number 1 for the property located at 1800 North Bush Street within Ward 3. The applicants are requesting approval of modification to allow for an increase in adult daycare participants and allow for a reduction in required parking spaces for an existing adult daycare center, 360 Adult Daycare. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve CUP number 2019-19 modification number 1 and variance number 2019-2 modification number 1 as conditioned. The property is located within District Center Medium-Low General Plan Designation and the Professional Zoning District, surrounded by land uses that include single-family residence to the north and east, an apartment building to the south, and a car wash to the west. The lot is approximately 0.53 acres in size, which equates to 23,223 square feet. The site is developed with a 10,800 square foot building. The subject site was originally developed in 1989 with a two-story 10,800 square foot building that has since been occupied by various professional and medical office tenants. On June 24th, 2019, the Planning Commission approved CUP number 2019-19 and variance number 2019-2, which permitted the operation of an adult daycare center on the first floor of the building, accommodating up to 40 participants and a parking deficit of 27% or 11 spaces. A total of 30 spaces were ultimately provided, while 41 were required. 360 Adult Daycare continues to occupy the first floor of the office building, while the second floor is currently occupied by professional office spaces. However, these spaces are not currently being leased and are vacant. The applicant is proposing an increase in adult daycare participants from 40 to a maximum of 199 total occupants and individuals, including participants and staff members, as the building can safely accommodate the additional participants within the building's designated occupancy limit of 199 individuals. Additionally, the applicant is requesting to allow for a reduction in required parking spaces resulting from the change of use on the second floor from professional office to medical office. The change would create an additional parking deficit based on the required parking for the combined mix of uses per the Santa Ana Municipal Code. However, no physical changes are proposed for the adult daycare center itself, interior or exterior. Transportation for the participants is provided by caregivers, public transportation, or center's vans, which accommodate 7 to 15 passengers. The adult daycare center staff includes an administrator and medical staff, a program director staffed by nursing personnel, a social worker, an activity coordinator, and program aides. Additional staff includes a physical therapist, occupational therapist, registered dietitian, speech therapist, and licensed clinical social worker as needed. The total number of on-site staff at any given time would fluctuate from 8 to 23. Likewise, the number of participants would fluctuate from 176 participants and 191. But at no point would total occupancy exceed 199 individuals. The center operates from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. with 2 4-hour blocks for participants. No changes to these hours are proposed as part of this request. Throughout their time receiving care, the participants receive meals, engage in various social and physical activities, such as chair exercises, puzzles, games, and arts and crafts. This is the project site from the southeast corner. Here we have the existing site plan. This is the first floor plan. The orange highlights the assembly area where the participants would congregate. This is the second floor. The blue highlights various offices. As it relates to the conditional use permit, staff has reviewed the applicant's request and determined that the CUP modification would not be detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the community. The proposed project responds to the growing community need by expanding the center's capacity to provide services to a larger segment of aging population and their families who live or work in the surrounding area. It offers the adult daycare flexibility to extend services beyond the current 40 participants. Existing constraints are primarily based on on-site parking, and the proposed variance seeks to provide parking relief. The modification is not anticipated to generate activities that would disrupt the character of the neighborhood. The center's daily operations would remain consistent with current practices, which include offering 2 4-hour blocks of programming throughout the day. As it relates to the variance, the commercial space occupied by the adult daycare center can physically accommodate additional participants, as the maximum occupancy of the building is 199 occupants. The limited size of the site restricts the available parking for the combined mix of uses, creating a unique challenge. However, medical office uses traditionally operate by appointment, which would minimize the risk of influx of visitors. State licensing requirements allow for a similar operation to accommodate additional individuals citywide. City staff has visited the project site on multiple occasions during morning programming to observe the on-site conditions. These field observations do not indicate a parking shortage. Instead, they confirmed that the majority of the spaces remained unoccupied. Furthermore, field observations revealed 14 spaces were currently occupied by the adult daycare center staff, leaving 17 spaces available for other uses. In the event that the office spaces are leased to medical office tenant, the analysis estimates that 15 parking spaces would be utilized based on the required parking by the Santa Ana Municipal Code, resulting in 29 occupied spaces. Various staff members are transported by company vans, ensuring that on-site parking remains sufficient. Lastly, the project aligns with several goals and policies of the general plan that encourage land uses that would enhance quality of life, foster compatibility, and support the community's needs and economic growth in the city. The table on the screen breaks down the parking requirement and compares the previously approved deficit and current request. This project is exempt from further CEQA review under a Class 1 exemption, which applies to existing facilities. An environmental review will be filed for this project. There is also no fiscal impact associated with this project. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving CUP number 2019-19 modification number 1 and variance number 2019-2 modification number 1 as conditioned. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions, and the applicant is also in attendance, available for questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the commission have any comments or questions for staff? Commissioner
Yes.
Benninger.
Yes. First of all, the picture of the facility is not very flattering. It's much more flattering when you go there and see it. I was impressed. I drove by today. And when I counted cars, there was only five open spaces when I was there today. Which kind of leads me to my question. Can we separate the CUP from the parking variance? Approve the CPU and not deny the parking variance?
So the request involves both the variance as the driving deficit or the driving limitation is the number of staff members. So that in turn limits how much they could increase to. It's not so much the number of participants, but the number of potential staff, and that would then affect the variance.
Because right now, if you're saying you need 14 spaces and you're going to almost triple the number of people that are there, and you're also going to add 4 to 5 more staff, at least from the numbers I look there, surely parking is going to go much higher than 14.
So based on how they operate, the adult participants don't transport themselves, and so they are not anticipated to generate parking spaces. Rather, the staff members would generate parking spaces, and there would be 10 staff members that would potentially generate parking spaces and 13 staff members. However, those 13 staff members, which are program aides, are transported by the center's vehicles. And so it's not anticipated to generate an influx of parking spaces.
I commented, when I went by today, they're very nice as far as having a staff member watching those that were outside. I was impressed with that. I've seen other areas where they haven't done that. Obviously, they were waiting to be picked up, so I do understand that the participants are not all going to drive for that reason on it. And I think the increase like this in this area, for this type of care is much needed in the city. And who knows, I might need it in the next couple of years too. But I am concerned about the parking. I just, is there anything that they could do in the neighborhood to, and the neighborhood is kind of well developed too. Some beautiful old homes in the area, but there is some, especially across the street where it looks like they have some underground parking in that facility. I don't know if they could lease some of the spaces from there rather than us giving them further variance.
So as part, so the code requires parking to be on site.
So what you're telling me is that we need to approve the variance on parking in order to approve this CPU? Is that what you're telling me?
That's correct, Commissioner. So what was presented to us, staff from the operator, was that they're seeking to increase the number of participants. And the state has certain requirements for staffing ratios to participants. So if participants go up, staff needs to go up to accommodate for that number of participants. Now, as explained by our planner Heidi, it's really not the concern that we have for participants, because largely all of them are transported either through public transportation, family members, or the own organization, adult daycare, through shuttles. But it's the increase of staff members that now have to get there some manner. Now, a lot of them also are transported through the services that adult daycare provides, but some do have to drive. And so the on-site sort of field visits that we did accounted for that. And we did kind of a worst case scenario, assuming that the second floor offices would be converted to a medical office, which have a higher parking rate. And based on worst case scenario, there'd be at any one time 2 available parking spaces. So of the 31 that were identified in the staff report, there'd be about maybe 29 that'd be occupied at any one time. Again, that's assuming that the offices are tenanted. You know, worst case assumes that they are all tenanted by medical. So we're comfortable with kind of the I guess, recommendation that we're making based on the very detailed narrative and operation plan that was provided by the operator, with the staffing and then the number of participants essentially. So that's where we're at.
Because that would be my concern also, as I looked at location, if the upper floors end up being rented out by some medical needs per se, the number of patients you'd have there is right during the time when you would have participants in the senior center area. And I just would see the parking flow into the neighborhood, which is already overparked as it is on it. And I think parking in the city is going to continue, is going to be an issue coming up. So, okay, I'm through. Thank you.
Commissioner Scamilla.
Yeah, I guess on this one, I'm just wondering, and I guess this brings up our overall conversation on parking, because this is really just that we're treating, or we treat adult daycare centers at a much higher ratio, right? So we're looking at essentially kind of 5-to-1 increase from medical office to an adult daycare center. I presume that's because when these calculations were made, they were done with the assumption that maybe it'd be more of a 1-to-1, one vehicle per every adult that was senior that was present there. And I'm just wondering, like, when we kind of came up with that 200 foot calculation, that's probably going back to the 1970s, right? Like, I don't think we've revisited that number.
That's a good question, Commissioner. I don't have the answer for you, but it's based, you're right, it's based on the square footage, and you know, the square footage may tie into the total occupancy that can be accommodated on site. You know, a larger space can accommodate more occupants, right? And that may have something to do with it.
Okay. Yeah, just again, just as we're going through that zoning code update, I think some of these uses where the number is so low, as far as, you know, that for every 200 square feet, you have a 2,000 square foot, very small building and structure, and then we end up with nothing but parking. I do think that this is a time and place where those types of baselines need to be evaluated, and kind of what makes the most amount of sense. I think this is a good section where it's maybe a little more flexible for you all, but I understand that there will be parking concerns, especially in this neighborhood and part of that triangle there, the Santa Ana Triangle. The other question I had was just with the overall site plan, will the current fencing then be either removed or adjusted? Because I thought we had to require some sort of, oh my gosh, queuing, because it's currently a locked gate. And I know in a lot of other locations, we typically have like a 5 or 10-foot buffer.
So the fencing, I believe with them allowing it to remain open throughout the day, they were allowed to keep it in that location by Public Works. So it's not creating, they were not
kinda
concerned with the queuing.
Okay, and that, again, just because probably lower traffic volume on that particular street, maybe one person opening, so less of a concern, but that was a Public Works call then on that. Okay, but then I guess note to self, there is some flexibility there in case in the future.
Right.
Public Works, okay.
Right.
All right. And then I guess I don't think that this came up during the review, but I'm not sure if there was an issue with either heightening or creating additional barriers between the one resident that is immediately to the north. I don't know if that's currently being used as a residence or if it is an office location. And again, just to kind of create more buffer spaces. And I don't think it's probably going to be required in this instance, but I'm not sure if staff took a look at that as well. So it's just that wall, because it's only about like maybe a 4 or 5 foot pony wall with a small extension kind of dividing the properties there. So I'm not sure if that was any kind of separation requirement when we have, an office or commercial use immediately adjacent to a residential property, like whether or not we want to encourage additional, additional walls to be put up in those cases. And again, I don't know if it's not necessary or if the neighbor asked about it or is aware, but that might just be something to take a look at as well. Again, I don't necessarily think it's the rowdy seniors will be kind of, creating any ruckus over here. So yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Commissioner Leo.
Yeah, I think you're seeing all of us kind of scratch our heads. We're giving them a parking variance. They're gonna increase occupancy. And what do we get? What does the city get? We get any increased landscaping? What do we get? We get more people. Or are we guaranteed 100 Santa Ana residents as the part of the 199? What is the city getting? We're giving them a chance to grow their business. And the trade-off was nothing, as far as I can tell. So I'm trying to figure out how we get to this point. We drag so many other businesses over the coals, and then this one, ooh, we'll let you go from 40 to 199 plus give you a variance. We don't get additional landscaping. You had questions about the buffer. How do we end up here? Is my question. Because we have a need. I agree. Question is, how many of them are going to be Santa Ana residents? I don't know. And so that's my struggle. We're giving a lot, and what are we getting in return? We just asked Wendy's to do a whole bunch. And yet this business is going to grow and we get nothing. So I'm struggling with that. It's for another day, but that's what I'm struggling with right now. Thank you.
Vice Chair Ramos.
Yes, I have a question. I think just kind of going off what Commissioner Benninger had said earlier. So if we're considering a parking variance, can we also encourage or require some sort of parking plan?
Yes, so that is a condition of approval. I'm not sure what number, but it is a condition of approval for if that become an issue, that parking be reevaluated and then implement either a parking plan, valet services, or consider redesigning the parking layouts to create more spaces. And so that is a condition of approval for both resolutions.
And can you walk us through what that might look like? So at what point, I guess it is like staff going to be driving by X amount of time to see if there's a need for it? Or are we counting on the applicant to approach staff and say, hey, we have a parking issue. We're now going to fulfill this condition?
Sure. So that would be driven by the community. So if there is any concerns as far as parking, if there is parking complaints, any parking code enforcement violations, if there is a volume such that prompts that, that would begin that conversation and working with the applicant. So if it gets to a point that it's creating impacts to the community is when we would evaluate.
Okay, has the commission ever just required the development of that from the onset? So I know I remember at least it happened one time on the commission with an affordable housing development where they required the development of a parking plan just to be ready in case it was ever needed. Is that something that the commission has done before, and is it something that we can do tonight?
For historic context, the answer to your question is yes, in terms of have the commission done that before? And it's certainly something that could be considered tonight if that's what you're asking. But I think what we may want to do is allow the applicant to also provide some responses to some of these questions. And then we can come back and further discuss any additional options you may be thinking.
Thank you. So that is a question I'll be posing to the applicant. Hearing everything that has been said, it's something that I would have an interest in. And I also understand the type of business that they have and the way they provide a service. So I do see them a bit differently than a fast food restaurant. And to the extent that we can assist, but also require just additional conditions so that the quality of life in that neighborhood isn't impacted. It isn't Ward 3, the area I represent. So I want to make sure we can find the common ground. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, Commissioner Ramos presented something that Vice Chair Ramos presented something that Commissioner Benninger presented as well. And I thought maybe it might be good to clarify because it was included in the staff report, but it might get lost. We're talking about 199 occupants, but 199 occupants are not going to be there at any one time. So the operators have presented 2 separate 4-hour blocks where there's going to be, a flux of participants to staff, right? That number is never going to be fixed because it's just going to depend on the number of participants that are there in any given time and then the ratio of staff. So I just wanted to make that clear that it's not 199 at any one time. I don't know that the operators could manage that, but I'll let them speak on that matter. The other part is the Commissioner Escamilla did bring up a good fact about the parking. So our parking requirements for this type of use is for the participants based on a square footage. And then there's a second line item that talks about staff member parking. So 1 parking space is required for every 200 square feet of gross floor area. So if we account for the existing square footage on the site, that's 20 parking spaces that are required. Operators have kind of shared with us that none of their participants really drive. So that's 20 parking spaces that are unaccounted for. 20 spaces that are not being used by participants. That's required by our code. So those 20 spaces account for the extra increase from the medical offices on the 2nd floor, and then the extra staff members that we're going to get if they flex. So that's why staff felt comfortable to make the recommendation that we're making today and not require a parking management plan up front. But, as a lot of things go, we can't say for sure that they're always going to operate like that or there's not going to be any problems, which is why we recommended that condition of approval. So that's why we feel comfortable making this recommendation today. And of course, you can continue with your discussions, but I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Commissioner Wu.
Executive Director, you're going to have to indulge me a little. I want to explore the operation because the operation is not only increasing the number of people usage, but stated in the staff report, there will be no interior or exterior changes, right? Modification. So our attention is drawn to the parking, which is nothing because it's a daycare center. Having operated daycare center, people come and go. And it's only on rare occasions do you have a big gathering. So my question in terms of operation is this. Number 1, is it an accredited daycare facility by a national accreditation organization?
They are licensed.
That's not my question. You could be licensed, but you're not accredited. The accreditation would check it for its programming, staffing, how they keep records and all that. Spend a week there calling your records and they look at it and examine and audit it. So my question is it an accredited daycare facility?
Okay.
They could answer that later.
Okay.
Okay. Number 2, since you're expanding the programmatic area into what was the office area, is it accessible? Is there an elevator there? So that the senior participant will be able to get to the second floor?
To clarify, they're not expanding the adult daycare assembly area into the second floor. They're only, they want to retain the ability to lease to medical office tenants in the future should they find the need or the demand for medical offices. It's currently vacant, and the only spaces being occupied is for the adult daycare.
So the adult daycare is a leasing for the first floor.
Yes,
And right now it's designated as professional office there, and they plan to lease it out to other occupants. So the daycare center will not occupy the second floor at all.
correct. I believe in the past they have operated a medical office that only serves the adult daycare center, but predominantly the second floor is vacant. As I understand, it was only for the intention to retain the leasability and flexibility in the future. Historically, the site has been.
For therapy or by appointment kind of activity?
Yes, by appointment, and then if necessary for any of the other additional staff members that are described, to establish their office there that would serve. And then again, I wanted to note that historically it has been occupied by medical office uses, and it has operated in a combined mix manner. But most recently, it's been utilized by professional offices. And so when a new medical office comes in is when we have to reevaluate the parking, thus prompting this need to evaluate it at this time.
Okay, so will the first floor usage by 360 adult daycare accommodate the increase programmatic activity there? Is there sufficient restroom for the increase too? And will the facility also be handicap accessible for those restrooms?
Yes, so the way that the center is built out, their occupancy and capacity can accommodate up to 109 individuals, and that's where that number comes from.
My math may not be very good, but I think by taking the 191 divided by 23, I get a 1:8 staff ratio to client ratio, somewhere in that area, right? So there's sufficient supervision for the increased amount of senior participants.
So that might be a question for the applicant. As they've indicated, they're operating as required by their licensing.
Okay, just so that I understand the clarification, the current daycare center will not be accessing the second floor, so we don't have to worry about questions about elevator and accessibility.
Correct.
Okay, and so our permit is only limited to the first floor usage.
So it is for the land use and for the parking deviation.
Right, which in the case of senior daycare center, they just come and go, and the parking does. Now, in terms of parking, is there a designated area for emergency vehicles? Because a lot of the daycare center around the area, they get a lot of visit from people, emergency vehicle, to get overactive doing the poker or something.
I can bring up the site
And
plan.
is there a designated a handicap?
There are designated handicap spaces.
Is there emergency vehicle designation? And should we have one? I don't know.
The on-site circulation allow for normal passenger vehicles and as well as potentially emergency medical equipment. But anytime you have any larger vehicles than that, like the fire engine, fire trucks, they are going to be parking on the street as they do now.
So what you're saying is the flow in the parking area, they could park there and get through.
Based on the on-site circulation, it meets the code minimum requirement, which would allow for your small emergency type transport vehicles. But when it comes to larger fire truck vehicles, that's going to have to be handled on the public street.
Thank you very much.
I also have questions regarding parking. As a city, we have a parking deficit, so with approving a variance like this. I know we're all concerned about increasing that deficit, but I think we'll just bring the applicant up because I feel like we just have questions for the applicant at this point. The public hearing is now open. Would the applicant like to speak on the matter?
I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Christina. This is my sister Gina. We are very excited to be here and thank you for allowing us to speak. Just want to let you guys know that we are want to clarify some things that's being said. Yes, per contract, all of our participants have to get transported in to our facility and back. And a lot of our employees take our cars home. So we would not be, we are currently at, we have 15 passengers, we have 8 vehicles. Even with the increase, we will not be increasing cars. We are, because we do 2 shifts. Also, another thing to do, to add to that is that we would need 23 employees and we're already at 21. We really love our seniors. The reason why we even went into this business is because my father, who's also here, Ray, he has a nonprofit that has always served the city of Santa Ana. You know, he had noticed that our seniors are deteriorating at a much faster speed because of the neglect. So it was his idea to open something like this to serve the community. So what Santa Ana gets back is healthier people. A lot of our seniors are living currently in Santa Ana and we transport them. And the amount and difference that people have seen when they start our service versus just even a week later, completely different people. So it is not just important that we serve them, but it's important that we serve the neighborhood. We certainly don't want to be an inconvenience to, you know, an overload in parking or anything of that nature. And so it's important for us that we also make sure that the neighborhood is not affected in a negative way at all, just in a positive way. So we'll go ahead and take any of your questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Wu.
So your facility is bilingual and bicultural. Thank you. Carroll Adult Daycare Center is something the Japanese community put together so they could serve their seniors. And as I approach that age, and in case I get incapacitated, I look for something like that to be served. So it does provide a needed service in this community, given our majority population of the city.
And Mr. Pham, I would like to answer that our facility has been approved by California Department of Aging and California Public Health Department. So we've had 2 site visits unannounced. They come in to make sure we're treating our seniors correctly and that we have the right staffing ratios and that we have the right services. And while they were programmed to be on site for 2 days, they were very impressed with our services to the point where they only stayed for 1 day. With very minimal advice. I wouldn't call it correction. We right now have multi-cultures. We've served the refugees, we've served the Asian and the Hispanic community. As far as my answer goes to Mr. Leo, we've dedicated ADAs and we've made the side curves and more ADA. We've given back to the city because we want to make sure that everyone are pedestrians and everyone walking safe. Not only that, but I'm a healthcare professional as well. And we've seen the positive impact on our Santa Ana residents on Fountain Valley. We have different cities that we've served, but they're so much better emotionally and mental health. So they're now, the focus of this community adult daycare is to keep our elderly living safely at home within their community. So we're decreasing the cost for emergency room costs because we have staff, medical nurses that are on site all the time addressing their concerns. So in case, you know, if they have a bad headache, instead of going to the emergency room, they're being triaged by our nurses. They've been, you know, we've been in very close collaboration with our primary care physicians, making sure that there is medication compliance, healthy foods. So as far as these are just small pictures of our vans that we've bought over the last year. So even when we were not at capacity, we were preparing so that way we don't we knew that we were gonna be able to come back in 1 year from operations and face you to say our operations are within the recommended guidelines. So we prepared along so that way our neighbors don't hit any struggles. Thank you.
Can I ask the?
Yeah, Commissioner Leo.
So what percentage of your attendees are Santa Ana residents?
I would say more than 25% of our attendees at this moment.
Probably at least even more than that.
Yeah. And they're off of First and Main and in these areas. They live within the senior living, assisted living homes.
So you understood my question. My question is it we're going to allow you along with the state to expand your business. And what I'm wondering is, could you get to 50% Santa Ana residents? Could you? I'm asking you.
We are here.
Your home base is Santa Ana.
Yes.
We have plenty of Santa Ana residents that need the services you provide and many others. I'm trying to figure out a way to where if we grant you expansion, that our Santa Ana residents
Absolutely.
benefit. And that's what I'm grappling with.
Yeah.
As Commissioner Wu said, we have a large population of seniors in this city that could use your services and many other services. So I'm just trying to figure out if there's a level we could get you to.
Yes.
To say, okay, we gave you this, but 50% or 40% or whatever it is are Santa Ana residents. That's all I'm asking.
And we would love that. And I'm actually like, that whole area is also medical offices that have received all of our flyers that I'm constantly trying to encourage the participants or the seniors in that facility, walking distance and the current medical offices. So yes.
We've reached out to UCI and Ultimate, the medical clinics, to serve them.
We would love that.
Vice Chair Ramos.
Thank you. Yes, I have a follow-up question. So I know you said about 25% of the seniors you're serving are Santa Ana residents. How does that percent compare to like other cities? I'm just wondering if like the highest percentage of people you're serving are Santa Ana residents.
It's the borderline. So it's between Santa Ana and sometimes they're into Fountain Valley. It's like that little in orange or that borderline right there.
Okay.
So they're all within very close proximity.
But would you say like that's the highest percentage of residents you're serving are from the city of Santa Ana?
I would say so. Maybe the next one would be Tanihaga.
Santa Ana is a very large population of ours.
Thank you.
Yes.
And then my other question is regarding some of the discussion that happened earlier and requiring a parking management plan up front. Is that something that you'd be okay with?
We will agree to it, but we've had already 2 parking studies that have shown that we shouldn't have a deficit. Again, because our contract with the state requires us to provide transportation. So for a participant to qualify, they need the transportation services. So we've had 2 parking studies and it's been proven that with our line of business, there's no deficit really for the parking.
Thank you. So, I mean, I think we all trust the studies that you've had conducted, but you're okay with having the plan ready just in case at any point you needed to implement it?
Would look at it.
Great. Thank you.
Commissioner Benninger.
First of all, the service you provide for Santa Ana is very much needed and very much appreciated, not only about the participant, but the family that you give that 4 to 5 hours a day break from. And that's where my friends have been involved. I'd be surprised if you're not higher than 25%, given your location and where you are in Santa Ana. So you may want to go and verify those numbers and just see so that when this question comes up again, because I'd be surprised if you're not 50% already with your location. I did see out there, and maybe I missed it. I didn't see any signs talking about no 24-hour parking, no overnight parking, parking only for the resident or only for business purposes. Do we have any warning signs like that out there? Maybe I just missed it today when I drove by. Do you know offhand? Is there any signs up saying the parking's only for their activities and no overnight parking?
They don't have signage. However, the parking lot is secured at night and would not be available to other businesses.
We have a
or
gate.
Neighbors.
How is this secured? Is there a gate there that closes?
There's a gate that closes when they're not in operation.
City, but my understanding there's a hotel proposed in the area. Are you aware of that?
We do have an application for a hotel at the end, on Main Street. 5 freeway entrance.
How far away from this facility is it?
Likely about 1,200 feet, quarter mile.
Okay, all right, I'll accept that. That ends my questions.
Commissioner Scamilla.
Yeah, and sorry, I normally wouldn't ask this question, but to Commissioner Leo's point, what types of, I guess, financial transactions occur on this premises, right? Like mostly when we approve certain types of land uses, we're like, oh, great, we're getting sales tax revenue in. In this case, I imagine there's a combination of payroll and then just economic activity from the 23 new hires that you have, which will then kind of, go out to the surrounding area. I'm sure that Pollo Loco that's probably right across or right up the street will get a little more use. So we'll get some of that. But I imagine it's mostly payroll and then whatever fees and services are rendered to the, to the seniors themselves, or is that kind of?
It's just payroll.
Just payroll.
It's a Medicare program, so it's covered by their insurance.
Okay,
So
so that-
they're not paying any fees.
Yeah, okay, perfect. And again, just because like larger conversations around like, do we lower sales tax rates, but then apply it to more types of services, but then medical, I think, is usually exempt from that anyways. Again, just to kind of get a full understanding of the types of benefits that are there. Other than that, I have no questions. I know that it's a growing need, and I know that this is something like even my own mother, not quite my father, I think he's a little too independent for that, but my mom would probably benefit from something like this. So it's just nice to know that these services are in the community. Thank you for all that you do for the seniors and everyone there. So that's all I have. Oh, sorry, one other question. Would you benefit or could you foresee a benefit from adding a loading zone kind of in that one corner area that's next to the ramp? Mostly to Commissioner Wu's point on having really fast access for emergency services, so that we at least have one street side parking space kind of set aside for loading, unloading, whether or not they're the vans, but then also in case of a medical emergency. And that would just be more to work with Public Works down the road, but just trying to get that on the record as to whether or not that would be a benefit to you. Oh, sorry.
Commissioner,
Yeah.
regardless of whether it benefits or not, the parking on the street would be something that was within the domain of our city and determination on parking standard and regulations. So if you can just look at the issues on site, that'd be.
Okay. Well, I encourage you to look into the possibility if that's a benefit to you down the road.
Sure. Commissioner Wu.
You lease the facility, right? You don't own it.
We are leasing it. Adult daycare does lease it.
So that would be an owner responsibility for any modification, right? Okay. I just
Yes.
want to make it clear. You are part of the senior network, because there are
Yes.
municipal senior centers and
Yes.
other private one. I would venture to say that you probably target a specific economic level of seniors that maybe not who does not have accessibility to other facility where there are like incomes. So it meets a specific really need in terms of our population of the underserved seniors. I may be correct in my assumption in listening to the way you describe what you do.
Currently, we do serve the underserved seniors, the ones that are really struggling in the community. They have lack of resources.
And trying to keep them connected with their family and lacking the other kind of services that they might need more medically assessed as you give them a life and socialization with other seniors, right?
When you go to bed at night with a smile on your face from how many family members are thanking you for the change you've made in their families, in their parents' lives. This is what drives us. This is what pushes us it's our motivation. It's been a huge blessing to serve this population.
And I wanted you to say that because as a former service provider and executive director of different social services, I know that sometimes we have missions to target specific populations that are underserved, and that did not come out in the staff report, did not come out in our questioning, and I just wanted the staff to also listen to your sincerity about it, which was
Thank you.
was
Thank you.
getting implied with the question I asked about accreditation and all
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you saying that.
I just wanted to bring up the point that it looks like just being able to service 40 participants, 40 seniors at a time, that feels very limited. I'm assuming y'all have already met that target and that's why you're expanding. How quickly will you be able to scale up the amount of seniors you have at any given 4-hour time block?
It's a very slow process because of the fact that, the approval itself takes 3 weeks. And, it's word by mouth. We're not really advertising. We tried, but my form of advertising is literally knocking at the neighbors and the clinics that are all local to us. So it wouldn't be an overnight jump to answer that. It's going to take, probably at least a couple of years to do that, but we want to be able to serve more.
Have the opportunity to do that. We get it. Okay. Recording secretary, have we received any written communication or is there a member of the public that would like to comment on this item?
We have received public comment that has been distributed to the commission and posted online, and we also have 4 public speakers.
Thank you so much. If we need you, we'll call you back to the microphone. Thank you. Can I call Carolyn Whittam and Barbara Whittam to join us at the microphone? And then we'll also have Mike Carter and Richard Abita.
My mom had to use the restroom, so she'll be back for her own turn. But we have different things to talk about. So we are the house that is directly to the north, that literally shares the wall. So my biggest concern is noise. I know parking is an issue, but or has been addressed. My biggest concern is noise. Every day since they have moved in, we hear noise from employees' cars when they will take phone calls or speak very loudly on their car phone, that kind of thing. There's also noise because every day they do an exercise regime around the parking lot, which is wonderful. I have an 83-year-old mom. We love exercise regimes, but the music level is quite loud, and it is penetrating through the windows, closed windows into the homes. So that is my biggest concern, is if we are adding more people, does that mean that that's going to happen more often? Because right now it is like a 1 hour, 10 o'clock kind of time period, and we've accepted it because we want senior help as well. But if that increases, that's very concerning for us, right? The other thing that I'm a little concerned about, like you had said, with the barrier, maybe that could help if there's more of a barrier between the 2 properties. Maybe that's the answer. It just doesn't seem like the employees understand that that's a personal residence right next door. The other concern that I have is trash pickup in the alley. So we all share an alley exterior where we put our trash out and whatnot. It's the city. Things get dumped there that are not your responsibility, or they're not your trash, but we try and take responsibility for that to keep that alley clean and neat and tidy. The car wash does a real job. The chiropractor does a real job. I do a real good job. It doesn't seem like anybody's going out to check the daycare's side of that. There's specifically one large piece of trash that has been there for weeks. So just something to consider, because that doesn't seem very neighborly. And then after our noise, their gardener comes in on Saturdays and Sundays. It fluctuates, sometimes Saturdays, sometimes Sundays, at 9 p.m. to do their gardening work, which doesn't seem like they can see a whole lot, but it's very disruptive to a household to be on a weekend evening very, very late. So those are my biggest concerns with if we're raising the population, do those noise factors increase? That's my concerns. My mom has her own, so you can call her up after. Thank you.
I'm sorry, and your name was
My name's Caroline.
Caroline.
Sorry.
Okay, we'll have Barbara come to
Thank
the
you.
mic. Thank you.
Oh, she is.
Hello, my name is Barbara Witham, and I live next door to the seniors adult center. I admire their projects. I am a senior myself, obviously, but I do have some concerns about the noise. It's very, very noisy. Lots of people and lots of cars. I know you said that they're not driving, but somebody's driving because there's lots of cars. There's a lot of music, which I love, but it's quite loud. There's one particular woman that is singing right by the fence constantly and trying to involve other people, but she is very loud and annoying, chanting with this morning she had a speaker and people were yelling, and it's just disturbing. I also know that they have a big facility and are serving our seniors, but sometimes the circles of people out in the parking lot seem to be, I don't understand if they have a big facility, why they're using the parking lot and not the inside of the facility. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have Mike Carter come to the microphone.
Like covering all the bases, and I would like to say, welcome to our neighborhood.
We'd like to say sorry.
No, it's okay. All right, my name is Mike Carter. I live at 125 West 19th Street, just a little across the way. The hotel thing is going to be 3 blocks from them to the north. It's an odd shaped piece of land, but it's good use. So approve it. We need it. It would be good for the neighborhood. I'm here to say I'm concerned about the parking variance. Lots of people have spoken eloquently saying, we have plenty of spots. We don't need a parking variance. We don't approve a parking variance. Please. You spoke about, well, there's a building across the street, a apartment complex that has an underground parking lot. Maybe they can lease some space from them. You guys granted a parking variance to build that building, and there is not enough parking spots in that underground parking lot for the existing apartments. I know personally because I'm always dealing with people coming over and parking in front of my house. We've had this house since 1955. That's the year I was born. That's 70 years now that it's 2025. So I know this neighborhood really good. And we have a lot of wonderful people in our neighborhood that are all working together, like the lady spoke about when things get in the alley. Thank you for doing that. I do that too. Because we have alleys in our neighborhood, we have, I'd like to call them slumlords, people that have rental properties, and when somebody moves out, all of the furniture that's left over ends up in our alleys. The alley on the west side of the building that these people occupy is in pretty bad shape, and it is a particular target. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the car wash being there, but people are always dumping on that. So Mr. Leo asked about what does the city get for it? If you're going to approve something, ask for a little bit of an improvement on that alley, because when they expanded the car wash, they didn't repave that alley, and it looked horrible. We have homeless people that are there all the time because of that car wash. it affects them. So solve these problems with the dumping, with the homeless, with the parking. Let's work together. We can get through this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll now have Richard.
Good afternoon. My name is Richard Abeda. I'm a chiropractor on Main Street, very much neighbors to the office building that they're at. And when they said that there were 2 doctors previously at that location, both of them had to sell because they didn't get parking variances. Parking variance, you could check it. To my knowledge, the last owner was a medical doctor who couldn't get a parking variance, so she had to sell. And then they bought it, I guess. The prior doctor I knew very well. He came over to me and wanted to buy my parking lot. I said, I can't sell my parking lot. I need I need certain number of parking stalls as well. And when I bought my building on Main Street, the Bill Apple, I don't think he's with the city anymore. He came to me and said, you need to sell it. And by the way, the city wants to buy it because you don't have ample enough parking. So please don't give a parking variance. It looks like they're trying to expand their, I guess not residents, but their people that they serve by 4 times, 4 or 5 times. Now, there definitely is a parking issue in the triangle. I open up my parking lot at night for some of the people that live in the apartments because there's not enough parking. They get their cars towed, and I charge them a nominal fee to park at night, but they got to be gone in the morning when I have my patients coming in. But there's definitely impacted parking in that area. And to give them a parking variance doesn't make sense to me. Since, and you could check, since the previous 2 medical doctors who owned the property could not get a parking variance and therefore had to sell the property. Now, we can all agree, I guess, that adult daycare is something that's necessary. It sounds great. But looking at the business model, it says adult daycare health services, nursing services, therapeutic services, including physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapist, mental health services. How much room is that going to require? And I think the issue with Santa Ana is you have to have 7 parking stalls per 1,000 square feet of medical services. I think that's still the issue. So, how many of these occupants or how many of these daycare people are going to be requiring medical care? And does it expand out in the parking lot for physical therapy? Like my neighbors say that they're, doing their physical exercise out in the parking lot.
Thank
Or
you
is it
so
just
much, Richard. Your time's up. Thank you.
Okay, so please don't give them a parking variance.
Would the applicant like to respond to any of the comments or questions made by the?
The sound really
alley?
quick.
Okay.
And the alley. We'll answer on that. First of all, thank you for speaking up. It's so good to hear from the neighbors because there are things within our control. Absolutely. Our seniors do go for a morning walk. It starts at 10 to 10:15, and we do have praise music playing in the outside speaker for 15 minutes in the day. If it would make people more happy, we're certainly willing to not play the music. It's just to try to encourage them to get up and move their little bodies. So we do have a lot of fun at our facility, and I encourage you guys to come. We welcome you guys. Come spend the day with us. We would love to have you with us for the day, and we're open to anything that we can do within our capacity. And I always want to make sure that you understand that we are always at 80% capacity. That's what we're limited to. They put us at 40 and 40, 40 participants, 40 workers. However, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. So, I had let them know that we're within 80%. So we're not tripling, quadruple times. It just depends on the day. And Monday is our busy day, and so you got to see that. Go ahead, Gina.
As far as the alley, we do have the gate locked, and we are so sorry that people throw their trash, their furniture. We will make sure that our staff could just do a courtesy walk. Today, I actually have a group messages to our drivers saying, please open the boxes and put them, the cardboards in the recycling bin. So we're always watching it. And it's funny that I hear it, but whoever wants to see my text from previous today, more than welcome. So we will make sure that we keep an eye on the alley as a courtesy to the neighborhood. As far as the parking variances, with the previous two doctors, I apologize, but I disagree with the statement. This office was sold as a medical professional use office. I have from the city the uses that were made for medical. The other doctor, Dr. David Sanchez, filed bankruptcy, and this is why he sold his business, not because of parking variance. It was due to some home trouble. So we are not aware of any parking variances that were turned down to previous medical doctors. The property has always been licensed for a professional medical use office.
Again, it's really important to note that we are not going to be increasing in our employees. We're increasing 2 people. We're required to have 23 by the CDA's requirements per participant, and we're at 21. We're required to transport them. We already purchased all the vans we would need, which is 8 vans, and we do 2 vehicles, 2 routes. So we would not be adding to our staffing. We would not be adding to our cars. And I do want to make that very clear with the variance.
Cars currently can transport up to 92 people at one point.
I did want a clarification. What are the hours of operation? When do staff get there? When does the last person leave?
Go ahead, Tina, sorry.
No, I was gonna say, our staff will get there between 6:30 sometimes a.m. And then the majority of the people leave by 1 or 2. And then we have some lingering, like a nurse, social worker doing their stuff. But our actual operation hours are very little.
We're averaging about 4 to 5 with actual participants.
Vice Chair Ramos.
Yeah, another question for the applicants. I know you've heard from some of your neighbors today having noise concerns. I don't know if this is the first time you're hearing of some of them, but if there were any that were unaddressed so far, like the gardener, and we don't expect you to make a commitment right now, but are you as the applicant willing to
certainly
have conversations with your neighbors and reduce any of like
Yes.
the noise pollution that you can?
Without a doubt.
We're here to be good neighbors.
Yeah.
And to serve the community. So to give the gardener a call and say, please don't do weekends at night, that's not a problem at all.
easy.
And we completely, we really apologize. We weren't aware, but that's something that should be a very easy fix. The other thing is with our staff being on their phones, that's a very easy text. As soon as I leave, I put them, hey, please don't be on your phone in the parking lot. We have plenty of space inside. There is plenty of space inside to host all our participants. Again, we try to get them vitamin D and sun. Being in the outdoors is absolutely uplifting. But for us to limit the noise with the music, 100%. For us to tell our staff, the one in the microphone, don't sing along the music, 100%. So we're here to thank you for bringing it to our attention. We're neighbors. Just come and knock at our door anytime. We want to be good neighbors. And, so we apologize and we will work on lowering the noise. And if anything else needs tweaking, please bring it to our attention. Thank you. And I apologize again. Thank you, Mr. Richard.
May I ask a question?
I'll just make a comment. So thank you for sharing that. Like I said earlier, I think you're doing a great job and I thank you for the service you're providing. And I also want to make sure that in providing that service, we're not unintentionally harming the quality of life in the neighborhood. So really appreciate the effort it seems like moving forward, you now know who your neighbors are and there can be that constant dialogue to make sure that you're able to provide your services while also not interfering with the quality of life in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for clarifying that, because I thought the music was on like 7 a.m. for like an hour, like blasting.
No,
So
it's
10
literally
okay.
20 minutes, 10 to 10:20.
Trying to push the buttons.
Commissioner Benninger, you had a question?
Huh?
It's not.
We'll work on it. It's, yeah.
10 a.m. though. I mean, it's a decent time. Commissioner Benninger? Oh, Commissioner Wu.
It's one of the things from time to time that Commissioner Leo brings to our attention, and that is the past way we approve property, and then over time, those decisions grade on the neighborhood. For instance, the access to El Pollo Loco, the car wash, Mr. Carter's 100% right. That alley is used as a street, yeah, to access it. It's not their fault. It's been done before. It gives us the time now to look at it, but it will not be addressed in this variance and approval of this project. But I would encourage you to get together with Public Works and the neighborhood to see what you could do. I just Googled your address. That's why I looked at it. It's a pretty clean neighborhood. So the trash must have came from when the doctor vacated and he left his stuff, and people were assuming that maybe it was you guys. So I just want to point that out, that from time to time we are ending up having to clean things up because you're coming up with a master plan and all that, and you try to make all our codes fit and work for today's time and usage. A Herculean job, Executive Director. I gotta hand it to you for paying attention to that. But there's only so much that we can do because we can't go back and undo something. So it seemed to me to pave that street is a Public Works issue, and you might want to talk to them about that. Okay?
Well, I would take to add, and just make a suggestion. I won't add this into the variances or the session, but put surveillance cameras and a sign that says premises under surveillance. I assume that's not there because I can see how that the alley off from 18th Street could become a real dumping ground with a car wash that's closed at night, and you guys are closed at night. I can see, Sunday night and Friday or Saturday evening is a good time for people to dump stuff in that area. And that's where at least the sign, hopefully it will deter people from using that as a drop-off point.
Sure.
Commissioner Scamilla.
Yeah, just wondering, if you would be open to, I guess, exploring ways to create a sound barrier, and really by sound barrier we mean raising the wall there by about 2 feet. I don't know exactly if the structure would allow for just kind of adding those 2 feet, or you'd essentially be creating a brand new structure. I guess for me, like, I probably would be most comfortable approving again a variance and a new conditional use permit with the sound mitigation, as that seems to be the biggest issue. I think the whether or not the parking itself, I understand the variance. It's really more that noise impact that I'm just looking to see if we can mitigate. And I don't know if you've explored that previously, or if if this is really first time on the radar. We don't have the details, or you don't have the details to be able to say yes or no right now at this moment.
I think the thing that our neighbor is describing, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but we have 2 things that we do outside. So we do the morning walk. And so the whole exercise point is from 10 to 11. And that's the time that they do the exercise. And that's when the music goes on. The morning walk is when it should only stay on, which is about 20 minutes. Sounds like they may keep it on the entire hour of morning. So what I'm going to do tomorrow is just cancel out that speaker outside. And I think that that's an easier fix. It'll get instant relief. The seniors are not allowed outside by themselves. There's always workers. So with our workers being aware that our neighbors want us to keep it down, I think that that's just, it's going to be sufficient because they do sit inside the entire time. We got you.
Still public hearing.
Commissioner Leo.
Public hearing is still open. So this is a good time for us to have a 6-month review that things got worked on. You're already talking to the neighbors. You guys can come back to the city staff, or city staff can come to you at 6 months. Let's see if the alley's cleaned up. Let's see if the noise went away. Let's see if parking works. All that stuff that we're talking about, because it sounds like to me, not your fault, but the alley has continued to be an issue. It was an issue before you got there, and could be an issue later. So one way we can help with that is to have a review. City staff, just like we talked about at the last one, you guys can check, make sure all of that stuff got taken care of. And if it didn't, We need to fix it. I don't know which council ward this is in. This is a council member issue as well, because if the alley's being used as a street, not good. We all have had those issues in neighborhoods. So what I'm saying is 6 month or a year review, you figure out what you want with the freedom to do it whenever you want it. Same language as we used before. But see, there's issues here that weren't caused by you, some by you, some by others. And so what we're trying to do is find a solution so that it works for everybody. But we can't solve it tonight. So if we put a condition in where city staff takes a look at it, then you guys can answer those, see if they got solved. If they didn't, then we keep at it. But we gotta, look, this neighborhood is not the only neighborhood that gets impacted. We have all deal with neighborhoods. You just heard us have another discussion. So we need to keep working at it, and we need to shine a light on it, because this is the only time. After us, it goes to council.
But here's my concern, and I'm sorry. We were told the same thing, come back in a year. We're here today as a review.
I didn't
know
say
that you didn't know
continuance. I didn't say anything about continuance. I didn't ask you to come back.
No, I know, I'm saying we were under review for a year. So we are finally at our year mark, and we are, I mean, I think even with our neighbors' approval, it's like the noise is the easiest of the fix. And
That's a point of clarification. Can you please clarify what Commissioner Leo was referring to as a review versus whatever review they've been under over the last year? There's a difference.
I'm not quite sure what the applicant is referring to about the 1-year review.
I can clarify.
I imagine the process.
So I can clarify, with the original approval, they were limited to that amount of participants and were indicated to come back to the commission to ask for more participants. At that early stage, they had wanted that full cap out, but we reduced it and said, if there aren't any parking issues, you can come back and ask for that full amount.
Thank you.
So my ask is, we have this all over the city. You're not the only people that go through this. We here can only ask staff to keep at it. The city's a big city. It's got lots of issues. So we're not asking for additional review of your project. What we are asking is the symptoms can get worked on. And if they don't in 6 months, staff can say, guess what, Public Works? We now know this neighborhood's been telling us, and you have told us, we don't want the alley used as a street. Well, that's Public Works problem. So you understand what I'm saying? It's kind of like sometimes the city, there's only so much city staff. Problems come up this way. If they don't hear about it and they don't see it and they don't get worked on, then you guys are in the same situation 6 months, a year later. We're trying to solve it as we go.
We're talking about big picture. I get it.
Yes,
I get it.
that's
I
the
understand
issue.
what you're saying. It's a little scary on our end.
No, I understand. It's not about your project. Go ahead.
Excuse me, Commissioner Leo, when we review a conditional use permit variance, the goal of our discussion here is to focus on the scope of the application. Some of these issues beyond the property that are beyond their control, I recommend that be addressed outside of the discussion of the variance in the CUP. What I recommend is that there are issues that we need to discuss, which is the noise issue. I think the commission is looking at how to address that issue. My view of this issue is that their activities is not to have any type of outdoor activities that would generate the noise level that would be impacting the neighborhood. Based on the information I've heard, a recommendation could be is that there is a conditions that stipulate no outdoor activity that would incorporate amplified sound that would address that type of noise issue. A further consideration, if there are other issues relating to noise, would be then a subsequent review by the city at some point in time when we do receive complaint. But we believe that a condition like that could address the noise concern, not allowing any activity outside of the property in the parking lot that would incorporate any type of amplified noise. And we will address, not that we won't address the other issues, but those issues can be addressed outside of the city process because it is, as you mentioned, not caused by them, and it's something that may not be able to resolve by them as well. It would have to be something that would be identified with Public Works through working with the neighborhood to address illegal dumping in the alley.
Thank you for clarifying. Based on the conversation, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you so much for answering questions.
Thank you. And we're sorry if we looked a little bit frustrated, but we've been doing this since 2016. So we pray that we find favor in your eyes today. Thank you.
Are we calling for motions?
Do we still need to discuss the CUP, the variance?
The only thing I'd like to add is just stop the music. I think seniors, getting them outside, just the sun on their face changes attitudes immensely. And I can't see a walk in the parking lot is causing that much noise, but it definitely loud music, being music played for an hour does. And so I wouldn't say if we do add something to this thing, it's that definitely we don't stop outdoor activities, we just stop the music.
So I'd like to make a motion. So I'd like to approve the CUP, but adding a requirement for a parking management plan to be made up front. And I'm actually against restricting loud music or outside gatherings in the CUP. I think with the relationships that are being developed tonight, I've already heard a commitment to stop the music, but I'm thinking, what if they ever want to have an outdoor event and they get neighbor approval? I wouldn't want the language in the CUP to bar them from that. So in my, I don't want to add that language. If that was a recommendation I heard.
The recommendation is to not allow outdoor amplified noise with daily activities. Whenever the applicant has any special types of activities, we do have a permitting process for that, and that's called land use certificate, which allows for, events, certain special event during the year, and it could allow for amplified noise at that point in time. I would not, again, based on the information that I've heard, especially when we don't especially when we already restrict outdoor activities, I would recommend that conditions be put in place that activities outside cannot have associated amplified noise with it. Because what you're addressing are special event, and that can be addressed through the land use certificate process.
Okay, so for my motion, I won't be adding that. If there's a substitute motion that adds it, that's okay. I just know that with nonprofit experience, when they want to have events and then there's this additional things they have to go through, I don't want to add additional barriers. So my motion won't include that, but if somebody wants to make a.
Vice Chair, I wouldn't even I wouldn't even tie it to events. It's music that can be played at
any point.
a daily, but at a sound level that isn't impacting the community. So I wouldn't add
Yes,
that
thank you.
language.
So I won't add it into my motion and trusting that the neighbors can keep the business accountable if they need to. I did add the parking management plan. And I don't know if there was any other friendly amendments that commissioners might want me to entertain.
I was actually against adding the parking management plan. I think that the parking's already been studied. The management will end up, I think it's probably a little bit overkill for, 20 or 30-ish parking spots. So I think it's a little bit of overkill, but I'm thinking of a parking management plan, as a planner, which they're fairly extensive. So it seems like a relatively high burden, and I'd rather look at the noise mitigation 1 or 6 months to a year from now on the sound barrier. That's really where my concerns are coming from.
Okay, so I will make a friendly amendment to remove requiring the parking management plan now and adding the 6 months check-in requirement with staff. And at that point, checking if a parking management plan is needed. And that check-in would also include the noise barrier exploration if it's needed.
That works for me, yeah. But I guess I will now second your motion with those.
Thank you.
So we have a motion by Vice Chair Ramos and a second by Commissioner Escamilla. Secretary, please call for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Benninger?
Aye.
Commissioner Escamilla?
Aye.
Commissioner Leo?
Aye.
Commissioner Pham? Commissioner Wu?
Aye.
Vice Chair Ramos?
Aye.
Chair Oliva?
Aye.
Motion approved by majority vote with Commissioner Pham absent.
That concludes the public hearing. Moving on to staff comments. Does the commission have any comments or questions for staff?
Yes, I do. First of all, since our first meeting of the new year, I wish everyone a very happy new year and hope you had a very joyous Christmas. Ben and your family did on it. It sounds like coming up to us will be this new proposal for and I hope that the commissioners will receive a copy of it so we can read it and look at it before we meet or before we have the workshop. Is that planning to send us copies to this transit zoning area?
Just for the commission's information, there is a planned work study session for February 10th on the transit zoning code. February 10th, correct.
And what time? In this meeting? At
In
meeting?
this meeting,
For us.
at the regular planning commission meeting on February 10th.
Can we see that proposal beforehand so we have time to
Absolutely.
read it?
We will provide, it's available now. We will provide you with a link to the proposed amendment as drafted and released.
Thank you.
This is regarding the Logan and Industrial.
Yes, that's correct.
Commissioner Scamilla.
Yeah, no, thank you. I guess welcome everyone. Happy New Year to our fellow commissioners and to staff. Just wanted to invite, staff and then also commissioners as well. The UCI's urban planning program will be having a speed networking night for their urban planning students on March 5th. So that's a Wednesday at 6 p.m. to 8:30. Over in, let's see, this is SBSG 1517. So I'll go ahead and email that over to staff. I was hoping Ali was here because I know he was an anteater and I think graduated from that program. So I was going to zot him to make sure that he attends, but hopefully he'll be back by then. But yeah, I'll send over the details to staff. You can share it with everyone and hope whoever can make it out will just let me know so we can get a head count.
No comments.
Commissioner Wu.
I want to wish everyone a happy Chinese New Year. With that, I hope our city continues to prosper as a sanctuary city and a place for everyone to have a place.
And just to echo what all the commissioners said, wishing everyone a happy new year. It's been an eternal January already, but hoping everyone's having a good beginning to their 2025 and hanging in there. I'm not too sure if staff has any comments or questions for the commission.
Happy 2025.
Thank you. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. The next regular meeting is scheduled for February 10, 2025 at 5:30 p.m.